Hello everyone, Lytro Storm here, and today we are finally doing What If Kenny Trained Like Goku. Now, if you aren't familiar with Kenny, go play the Telltale Walking Dead game. I highly recommend it. You might as well go play it now before I start making satirical jokes on a YouTube video. And if you aren't familiar with Goku, anyway, moving past that, I'm sure the question is, why am I doing What If Kenny Trained Like Goku? Why Kenny? Why The Walking Dead? I mean, giving key to Walking Dead characters, it doesn't sound too good, right? Well, I don't care, because everyone's been doing What If Blank Trained Like Goku, and I'm tired of it. I want to get my fair share, and so I decided to do the Big Chad Kenny from The Walking Dead. And so, Kenny is one of my favorite characters in The Walking Dead, probably top 1. Yeah, so Kenny is probably my favorite character in The Walking Dead, and so I decided, why not give the Chad he is a massive power up, because I said so. So yeah guys, if you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to like and subscribe. I'm sorry, I don't even have a script for this one because it doesn't matter. The power of Kenny is just so strong that I literally don't even need to read from a script. Anyway, let's just get straight into the video. Discord and Twitter in the description, like I said, and let's get into it. Okay, so now that you guys know the premise, let's just get rolling with the actual video. So, this is actually going to take place after Kenny escapes Season 1. So, either in the alleyway or inside of the building. Instead of actually going on his own and finding Sarita, he runs off on his own and tries to survive for a little while on his own, maybe for a few weeks, before he stumbles onto a tower. He sees a giant pillar, and he decides that, well, he should probably try to climb it to be safe from the walkers. He doesn't know where it leads, but if it leads to somewhere, then he might as well take it. Remember that Kenny was always trying to figure out what to do, and if there was even a slight chance of something, he would always go after it. And so, for the next few months, he begins trying to climb the tower, and obviously this is not going to go well for him. He is just a regular dude, and so, even though he's a huge Chad, he's not going to be able to climb Corn's tower because it even took Goku a while, and Goku is already as strong as he was. So, for the next few months, Kenny just keeps on growing in strength, and eventually, his actual strength has no more room for how strong he's getting, and so, he actually is able to tap into his ki. And so, eventually, he is able to finally climb the tower, although by this point, it has likely been over half the time of the time skip between Season 1 and 2. When he makes it up to the top, he congratulates himself and then eats some of the food that he stored, and then he tries to search for more food because at this point he's starving. He's been climbing for roughly over 2 days just to try and get up, and obviously he's fallen multiple times. He's been able to survive because the times when he's fallen, he's actually been strong enough to survive the fall. So he looks around trying to find something or someone, and he finds pots of beans. He eats a few and realizes that, yeah, these give more food than he really thought. And that's when someone emerges from behind him. It was Korin. Kenny believes that he's dreaming because he just climbed a huge tower and ate beans that filled him up faster than he thought, and then he sees a cat like on 2 feet. So he's pretty fazed by this. He might even like pass out. Actually, no, he won't because he's such a Chad. He won't pass out. And so he sees this and he's just thinking he's on like shrooms or something. He thinks he's retarded, and he realizes, yeah, no, this is reality. And so then Korin tells him that it must have taken a while for him to get up here, and that he's actually been, like, seeing over his progress. He managed to tap into his energy, so he will help him further that, as congratulations. Kenny is extremely skeptical, as he just spent the last few months trying to climb a tower, and he's presented with a cat. However, Korin tells him not to underestimate him and tells him to come at him. Kenny does so, whipping out his Glock, but he shoots him and all the bullets miss. Korin then tells Kenny that he's actually underestimating himself by using the gun, and so he slaps his gun off the tower. Kenny then says alright and decides to make it a fist fight, and whenever he does this, he sees that he's actually a lot faster, stronger, and more durable than he was. So when Korin hits him, he can actually take some of the attacks. And so, Korin basically tells him that he needs to stop underestimating himself and actually focus on his own strength. Because if he keeps on using guns, he will probably get himself killed. And so Kenny then seeks training, and so Korin offers him to train, and Kenny, seeing that he just climbed the tower for many months, decides that yeah, it's probably the best bet. And so he trains with Korin, and Korin shows him how strong he has really become. Now, by the end of the training, which I think would end probably around like a month before we actually see Clementine and Krista after the 16-month time skip, a month before then, they would finish the training, and Kenny would decide that it is now time for him to go. He thanks him for the help, and Korin decides to give him a Senzu Bean. Kenny has now learned his true strength and has fully realized his power and potential. And so now, time to scale him. So, in canon, Kenny is probably like a little bit above average, because, I mean, he kind of bodies a lot of people in the series. Here, he is now as strong as Goku was after he climbed Korin's tower. So he's not as strong as Goku was after he trained with Korin, but he is as strong as Goku was after he climbed the tower. So that's still an impressive feat. That still puts him extremely strong within Walking Dead. So Kenny then jumps off the tower, survives the fall, and begins running around the area. He runs into a couple walkers and easily beheads them with just a chop of his hand. He fully realizes just how strong he has become after this training, so Kenny then decides to head north, where he finds a ski lodge and meets Matthew, Walter, and Sarita. I still think Sarita would be here because I don't see why she wouldn't. I mean, she was there in canon. It might have been because of Kenny that she went there, but either way, I think she'd still end up here. And so Kenny then lives with them peacefully, and around the time Clem and the cabin group arrive at the ski lodge, they actually come across the bridge, and instead of Matthew, it is Kenny, since Kenny is strong enough and fast enough, and he should be able to keep watch, and plus, he can also sense the energies of anybody who shows up. And so, when Clem and Luke go on the bridge, they see Kenny, and that's when Kenny starts to, kind of get sad. We have the same emotional moment from the series, only this time, it's at the bridge and not the ski lodge. And so Kenny welcomes them all in, and, basically just the same thing happens as in canon. Only this time, Matthew is not killed, so there's none of that. When Carver and his men show up, they're pretty much handled easily. Kenny easily just bodies Carver. He doesn't need to run and hide because he's just fast enough to avoid the bullets, fast enough to stop them, and he easily bodies them, tells them to get out, and if they ever come back again, he will kill them. Korin taught him to be a little bit more merciful, however, Kenny only gives one extra chance, and so if they break that chance, then they will die. And so then Kenny disarms them all, takes their guns, and then tells them to leave, and so they all leave. I still think that during this time, Kenny would find out about Wellington, because we don't really know how Kenny found out. All we know is that he found out. In canon, he was with Sarita, so if he found out with Sarita, then Sarita would still know here. If it was from Matthew and Walter, then he would find out from them. So either way, Kenny should still find out about Wellington upon meeting them. Obviously, Kenny and Sarita would still get together here, so no change there. Kenny then decides that they all need to go together and find Wellington. And so, Kenny wants Clem to stay, however, Clem also wants the group to stay. And so, Kenny allows this because, obviously, Carver isn't really going to be a threat, and if he shows up again, he could just body him again and kill him, so it won't even matter. And so, maybe a week later, Carver and his crew once again show up. However, this time, they bring the entire squad. They bring everyone from 400 Days, including Bonnie like they did in canon, and also force Mike and Jane to actually help. And so Kenny, seeing this and sensing their energy, rushes outside, easily disarms Carver, pins him to the ground, aims Carver's gun at Bonnie, Troy, and anyone else who showed up the first time and kills them. He then gives all the ones who are showing up for the first time a chance to leave, so they accept it, especially Mike and Jane. Jane then dips, going off on her own, and Mike actually offers to stay as he really didn't want to do this. So then the 400 Days group, whoever you had with you, decide that they also want to stay. And so Kenny takes in the 400 Days characters as well as Mike and decides to let them stay as long as they actually work. Eventually they earn his trust and he decides that they need to go to Wellington. Kenny tells the group to stay there and he runs around the area trying to find anyone who has a vehicle. Eventually he comes across the house that they find in canon when Arvo is there, however this time Arvo is not there. And so he decides to take the truck and begin working on it. Eventually, he gets the truck working and drives back to the ski lodge. Upon arrival, he tells everyone to get in, and so only a few people are able to get in, and so Kenny decides to run around and try to find Wellington himself. He searches the area and eventually senses a huge group large enough to be Wellington, and so he decides that that is the place. He then comes back and tells everyone that they need to get in the truck and he'll come back for the people who can't. And so half the group gets in the truck and Kenny leads them to Wellington because he would obviously be way faster than the truck, and so they'd be able to follow him. Kenny then decides to go back, and so to not waste gas, and so he lifts up the truck and then runs it back, although he is a little bit tired, so he decides to have a meal. Then the rest of the group piles into the truck and he runs to lead them there. They eventually arrive near Wellington, and so the group then decides to meet up and walk toward the gates. And so that's when the one lady from the end of season 2 stops them and tells them to drop all their weapons. And so they do so, and Kenny tells them that, yeah, they're trying to get into Wellington. However, here she is even less likely to let them in because they're an entire group. Like, they're capable on their own. Also, they definitely will not have enough space for that many people. I mean, with all the 400 Days characters, that's over 10 people already, and if you have every single one of them, it's almost 20 people. And so she immediately turns them away, gives them the bag of supplies, and so Kenny decides, you know what, fine, we're just gonna make our own community. So him and the group then head back, and eventually they find the town from episode 4. They decide to reform the town, and so with Kenny's help, they easily body all the walkers, and eventually probably even find Arvo and his group. However, because there is no stealing involved, because Jane isn't there, they are more docile and decide to actually help out. And if they were to try anything, Kenny would easily stop them and kick them out. But however, as the years go on, they're able to easily build up their walls and prevent walkers from getting in. They build up a stabilized town. As the years go on as well, Kenny decides to teach Clem, Sarah, and AJ as they grow up about ki and how to control it and become stronger than even him. And with this, the only people who really go on runs are the ones with ki, so that way they can easily protect themselves and there's no chance of death. This allows for the group to stay alive, and if anyone did attack, then the ones who do know ki would be able to body anybody who tried. If the New Frontier or the Delta ever tried to get involved, the group would easily body them and then take their own war to them because they would just be weak and not be able to stand a chance. And so, many years later, even past the final season, they are thriving and their area almost looks like it hasn't even been affected by the walkers. Kenny by this point is relatively old, however, he still manages to keep up in strength and is still very strong. Him and Sarita might have already had children of their own and taught them ki as well. Clementine might have even found herself someone to have kids with as well, and just things like that. So ultimately, this ends up in a good ending for everyone in that group. They build a stabilized community that even tops Wellington, as eventually Wellington does get attacked just like in canon. Maybe some of the refugees from Wellington would actually show up and come to their group as well. But yeah guys, that's gonna wrap it up. Hopefully you all enjoyed the story of what if Kenny trained like Goku. Here, he trains with Korin and basically just becomes godly, and eventually leads the revolution to basically just change the world and make everything a lot better. I do think that as the years go on, this would lead to much less walkers, and maybe even they could build up a super force to just wipe out all the walkers on Earth. I don't know though, I'm not going to get into that just because I feel like that's a little out there. I mean, it is definitely possible, but I don't really want to get into it. But I do think that at some point, the world would go back to how it was. But yeah guys, hopefully you all enjoyed. Make sure you like the video if you do, and check out some of the other what ifs I did. This one was completely serious, and if anyone tells me that this is nonsensical, I just want to tell them that they are the nonsensical ones, because this is 100% serious, and I think that this is definitely logical and could easily happen. So yeah, that's it for what if Kenny trained like Goku. Hopefully you all enjoyed the story, and check out some of my other content. And as always, like I forgot my outro. Just yeah, the bot.